All right, Joe Benigno, the Oh the Pain podcast, Monday, June 13th. Our special guest today, the incomparable Sydney Arthur Rosenburg. Now, the Joe Benigno Oh the Pain podcast brought to you by the Hackensack Brewing Company, KZ Sports Marketing, Anita Discount Tire, Blue Hill Golf Course in Pearl River, New York. The incomparable Sydney Arthur. Look at you, man. It's unbelievable. Sid, you get better looking all the time, bro. Now, what are you doing? Like 4 movies? How many freaking movies you doing now? What's going on with the movie world for Sid right now?
Well, thank you for saying that. Joe, I'm going to be 56 years old this year, but I keep up the tan. I keep up the workout at 3 o'clock today. I'm in great shape. I've got 3 movies right now and 1 TV series. And I think you're right. I think I've never looked better in my whole life. But my wife, God bless her, the beautiful Danielle, is 52, and she's still gorgeous. So I have no choice but to try to keep up with her. But thank you for that, Joe B.
All right, so tell us about. You got to tell me about these movies, bro. I mean, you're going to Hollywood. Who you doing? Movie? Who you doing? What are you doing it with? De Niro, Pacino? Who you doing it with?
No, but
Johnny Depp.
The movie I shot in Los Angeles is with a guy named Danny A. Just so you know, Danny A. was in The Irishman with Pacino and De Niro. He was in Goodfellas, all those movies. And his movie is Gemini Lounge, a true story about a bar in Brooklyn, Joe, in the 1970s that was run by the DeMeo family, Roy DeMeo, the Gambinos. They ran
Roy DeMeo. Wasn't Roy DeMeo the guy who used to chop the bodies up? Wasn't that him?
Correct. So on the second floor above the bar, they chopped up the bodies. And I actually play his first cousin, Joe Guglielmo. They called him Dracula. He never went outside. By day, he bartended. At night, he chopped up the bodies. I've already shot that movie in Los Angeles. It'll be out in December. It's going to be a fantastic movie. And I've got 2 more. One called The Tank Job, about the very near 1963 stock market crash. I'll be filming that in Bayonne, New Jersey, coming up in August. And then one more, a London crime movie, which they're turning into a trilogy and a TV series. I'll be shooting that in New York in September. But my biggest role is a very popular Amazon Prime series called Gravesend. We're filming season 2 right now. And in that, I've done scenes with Andrew Dice Clay, Armand Desante, Jazz Palminteri, Vinny Pastore, William DeMeo, all those guys. So 1 TV show that comes out in November and 3 legitimate movies, all coming this year.
So, and of course, you're doing your morning show with the great Bernard McGurk on WABC, right? The Bernie and Sid show. Now, I mean, with all this stuff you're doing, I mean, how do you have time to do the show in the morning, Sid? Jesus Christ.
Now, listen, that's still my main thing, Joe Benigno, my radio show every morning. I still love radio the most. And who would have thunk all the way back in 2000 when I first met Bernie McGurk on the Imus in the Morning show, that 2 years later we'd be doing this. And by the way, getting a 6.6 in April, we're getting ratings like Howard Stern and Elvis Duran. I mean, even bigger ratings in 12 plus, brother. We are crushing Boomer Esiason and Gio. So look, the fact is, there's a lot of people out there that still love their sports. I know I do. But they're worried about the country, they're worried about their city, they're worried about their state. And you can listen to me and Bernie, and I'm going to give you all the sports plus the politics rather than spend 4 hours listening to one at bat during the Met Diamondback game last night. So we're doing very, very well. Thank God, 23 years later, me and Bernie are still a team like you and I were.
By the way, the Mets played the Angels last night. I want to
Quarter
clarify that for you, all right, Sid? Just to let you know, all right?
Got it. Alonso was 18th home run, 4-1 win.
You know.
I got it. 40 and 22, 5.5 game lead over Atlanta, who's won 11 straight. I'm all over it, Joe Benigno.
Of course you are. Of course you are. Now, we're talking to the great Sydney Arthur Rosenburg, and we'll get into a lot of different stuff. I mean, there's so much stuff we could talk about. I mean, here's the bobblehead, by the way, for those who haven't seen it. This is back. Sid and I had 2 stints together, right, Sid? And then, unfortunately, both times there was a little bit of an issue and things didn't quite work out. I'll say that. But we did, even though we only had a short period of time, there was a lot of different things that went down over those years, Sid, as you know.
Yes. And look, I'm accountable. It was all my fault. I think that you and I could have had one of the great, I think we did, but we actually did have one.
Hey, Sid, you never know. Maybe we will have another show somewhere down the line.
Hey, I wouldn't count that out. I would work with you in 2 seconds. You're so brilliant. And we did have a great run. It was only 3 years, but we were on our way to being the next Mike and the Mad Dog. There was no doubt. Plus, we were younger. We would go to Atlantic City. We would go out to dinner. We were all over New York City. Your wife, Terry, my wife, Danielle. We were like a really cool sports talk duo. Usually sports talk duos are kind of nerdy. That wasn't you and I. We were like really cool. So it was a great time. I loved working with you. When I screwed it up, I did. And look, I'm lucky. That was 18 years ago. I'm lucky I'm still in the business, let alone enjoying the success I am right now. But certainly looking back at my whole career, working with you was about as good as it got. You were great.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. There's no question about it. Some stuff we could talk about, some stuff we can't talk about, but but who really cares, right? Are you upset? What? Go ahead. What are you going to say, bro? Go
No,
ahead. Oh, am I speaking now? Is that what we're doing?
Yeah.
Okay. I thought I lost you there for a second. Can you hear me still, Sid?
Yes, I hear you.
Okay, you are beautiful. All right, that's good. Now, were you upset about the Rangers going down? I mean, give me your over. I don't want to break everything down, but give me. I mean, you can't look at this year and say it was a bad year for them. You really can't.
Oh my God, no, the complete opposite. Nobody thought the Rangers would make the Eastern Conference Finals. Nobody. Even before they were down 3-1 to Pittsburgh, by the way. Look,
Right.
It was a great year for the Rangers. I know Gerard Gallant personally. I became very, very good friends with Vinny Viola and Doug Seafood. They own the Florida Panthers. I lived down in Miami all those years. I would even fly on the Panthers jet, Joe, with the players and go to New York for series against the Rangers, Islanders, and Devils. And Vinny Viola would put me up in a 5-star hotel in Jersey City if they played the Devils, a 5-star hotel in New York City if they played the Rangers. We would go to Bamontes together in Williamsburg, New York, when I was living in Florida. So I got to know those guys very, very well. And they became, very, very, very close friends. And Gallant was the coach of that team.
Right.
So I got to know him back then. He's a terrific coach. He's exactly what those young players needed. This is the youngest team in the National Hockey League. That kid line looks like they're going to be great. Obviously, Kreider comes off a career year. He was never a goal scorer, never scored more than 27 in his career, put in 62 this year combined. So him, Panarin, Zibanejad is an absolute superstar. And they've got the best goaltender in the National Hockey League, except maybe the guy right now in Tampa Bay. So I look at it like this. They beat Pittsburgh. That was icing. They beat Carolina. That was another piece of cake. And they lost to the best team in hockey, a team that will probably win their 3rd straight Stanley Cup. The future is bright. I'm anything but upset with the Rangers. I'm excited about the future.
Yeah, no question. By the way, Vasilevsky, you can say whatever you want about him. Don't tell me he's better than Shesterkin. I'm watching the game the other night. Shesterkin, it's another, there was about 22 on ones right at the freaking doorstep, whereas Vasilevsky was basically in a rocking chair with the amount of real chances the Rangers had in this game. So, you know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of Brodeur, like in the old days, with the Devils and Brodeur, we had, with Stevens and Danico and all these guys, Niedermeyer, Rafalski, and Brodeur would face like 10 shots a game and everybody would go delirious about Brodeur, right? Am I wrong about this? I'm not a big Brodeur guy.
No, you don't forget, of course, he also had a Calder Trophy Award winner in defenseman Scotty Gomez, who was a terrific player.
Oh, I forgot about him. Right, him too.
Yeah,
right.
Look, right. I mean, look, they played that trap defense, and they did not allow opposing teams to spend a lot of time in their zone, which definitely worked out for Brodeur. I'm not going to knock Brodeur, though. That guy, whatever shot, it's kind of like saying, well, you beat the bad teams. Well, you beat who's on your schedule. You got to stop a shot. Marty found a way to block it. Richter, a little more difficult for Richter, but he won less Stanley Cups. Look, your point is well taken in Game 6. Vasilevsky wasn't tested. But there were plenty of times in Games 4 and 5 where the Rangers tested him and he came up big. So he's about to win his 3rd consecutive Stanley Cup. I think it's hard to knock the guy.
Yeah, no, he's going to the Hall of Fame, as is Hedman and Kucherov and Stamkos. I mean, and the coach. I mean, these guys are all going to the Hall of Fame. So there's no doubt about it. We're talking to the great Sidney Arthur Rosenburg. Do you like doing politics? Look, obviously, the state of the country is, we both agree. I don't want to get too much into it. We both know it's a freaking disaster right now. I mean, this is the worst I've ever seen this country in my lifetime. I think you probably agree with that. I'm a little older than you are. Do you like doing the politics more than you like doing the sports?
Well, let me tell you what happened with me, Joe. It was 2014, and Mark Chernoff offered me the opportunity to come to New York and basically fill in the whole summer at WABC. You remember that? And I had a show down in Miami, so I would do my Miami show in the morning, and then I would fill in middays for you and Evan, sometimes afternoons for Tessa, and I did the whole summer. And I remember I was yelling back and forth, is Carmelo Anthony a great player, or is he just a great offensive player? Mm-hmm. Is Eli Manning a Hall of Famer, or is he just a compiler? Is LeBron James going back to Cleveland or LA? And I remember calling Danielle and I said, there was just a terrorist attack in Paris. And I said, what am I got 2 little kids. I'm yelling with grown men, yelling at the top of my lungs about whether or not Carmelo Anthony is a great player. And look, don't get me wrong. I love it. It has its time and place. But I came to the realization, Benigno, in 2014, that summer, that it was time to just kind of move on just a little. And I started to employ more politics in my daily show down in South Florida. I had guys like Chuck Todd, who I don't talk to now, but I did back then.
Chuck Todd from, what is he, MSNBC, right? Chuck Todd?
Yeah, Meet the Press, NBC.
Oh, Meet
right.
the Press, right.
He's
a disaster, we know that.
Exactly. I was there for the Romney-Barack Obama debate up in University in Boca Raton. So I started doing more politics down in Florida. And I said to Danielle, I said, I think I'm going to start to move towards politics, much to the chagrin, mind you, Benigno, of my program directors down in South Florida. Mike, I went to one day, he goes, we hired you to talk Dolphins. I said, okay. While Joe Rose is talking to Wes Walker for the 100th time, or Brian Hartline for the 900th time, I'm going to talk to Barack Obama. And I said, I promise you I'll get higher ratings. And he yelled and screamed at me. And then I was right. I got higher ratings. And eventually
so hold on a minute. So you were actually talking to Barack? Well, you got invited. You talked to Barack, did you?
I did talk to Barack Obama once down in Florida.
Oh, okay.
So
by the way, did you get it? I forgot. Did you get invited to Barack's party up in Martha's Vineyard?
No.
So there's no truth to the rumor that you were doing the the twist, let's say. No, I don't know. No. Whatever, the lambada, okay, whatever they call it, with Michelle Obama. You weren't doing that, right?
No, that wasn't me. It's funny, when he won, and I didn't vote for him either time. I voted Republican both times. But when he won, I remember watching him and his wife and two daughters walk down towards the White House. And I said, you know what? I really want this guy to succeed. I really did. He was first black president, seemed like a nice guy, articulate. He was a disaster. He was one of the worst presidents in the history of this country. All he did was make excuses, one terrorist attack after another, the slowest moving economy in the history of our country. Long story short, I decided back then it's time to kind of move on. I couldn't do an FAN show right now, and Chris Oliveira knows that. If I ever went back to FAN, I'd be doing an Imus type of show in the morning. I just couldn't do it. I love sports, and I can.
You actually talking to Oliveira? You still talking to Oliveira? Do you?
Oh, all the time.
Okay. He's still there, right? He's still working there, right?
He's in charge. What do you mean? He came back?
No, I understand. You're supposed to laugh when I say that, Sid. I mean, come on. I mean, of course I know he's working there. That was, I was trying to,
listen,
you know what I'm doing here.
22 years ago, when I got my first job in New York City at 102.7 WNEW. I've been working in Florida.
Well, you were working with Carton. Weren't you working with Craig Carton back then?
Well, I'll tell you what happened. I get the job at WNEW with a guy named Scott Kaplan.
Scott Kaplan. Is he still in San Diego, Scott Kaplan, now?
Yes.
Okay.
San Diego. They fired Scott Kaplan, and then I went into Jeremy Coleman's office. He works at Sirius XM, and I had worked with Craig Carton down in Fort Lauderdale with Scott Kaplan in 2000. Right. So I saw his resume, and I said, I like this guy. I know I got into trouble in Philadelphia. Give him a shot. So I'm the guy that really hired Craig Carton at WNEW to be my partner. As it turns out, he stabbed me in the back. He went to 101.5. I went to the band. We didn't talk for 10 years. Now we're very, very good friends again, but it was an ugly 10 years for me and Carton. But our intern was a kid named Chris Oliveira. And he split 3 days with us and 2 days with Gary Delabate for Howard Stern. And he sent to me all the way back then on Kings Highway in Brooklyn in the year 2000 one day. He goes, Sid, one day I'm going to run this company. And I said, Chris, I can see that. And 23 years later, he does run the company. But he calls me every month to tell me my ratings, to congratulate me. He's the guy, not even my own boss. So we still talk often. But if I ever did something
hold on. So Oliver, by the way, we're on the Joe Benigno Hold the Paint podcast with the incomparable Sydney Arthur Rosenburg. So wait a minute. So Oliveira calls you every month to give your ratings on ABC update.
Correct. And we talk more than once a month. We talk, I would say, probably once a week. I mean, my kid got admitted back in November. Chris was there, and we've had discussions even a couple of years about me replacing Mike Francesa. Anyway, I talk to Chris often. He's been a friend for 23 years. I love the guy. And if I ever went back to a sports station, I would have to do a show like I Miss, where I do talk sports, but I have to talk politics and news. I have to.
Right. No, I understand. We're talking to the great Sydney Arthur Rosenburg. You find it, and I understand. I mean, but I don't want to get totally into, because where I can go with all this political stuff too. I mean, we could break everything down from whatever you want to break down. I mean, I think Lindsey Graham was talking to Bernie Sanders today. I mean, that's an interesting combination. I don't have too much love for either of those guys, but we'll leave that alone for right now. But you actually like doing, because the country is the way it is, it's almost like, well, the sports has kind of been put in another area for you. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to come off like I'm an adult and sports is now for kids.
Right,
but
right.
I mean, sports is a nice thing. It's really, look, sports is supposed to be.
You get excited. Let me ask you this. If the Rangers had won the cup, would you be excited about it? Would you be like, ready to go to the parade? I mean, how about that aspect?
Oh, yeah, of course. I mean, look, Joe, I talk Rangers every day with Bernard during these playoffs. Every day.
Right.
Ronnie, one of my best friends. I'm very close with Ronnie. He's dating Sarah Palin. And they both have been on
Ron Duguay, yes, he is dating Sarah Palin. Right. I didn't know that.
And they come on the show together on me and Bernie's show, talk about Ranger hockey and politics.
Right.
I've had Mike in on the show the last couple of weeks. So
Who's I've covered Francesa, did you say?
No, I've had Mike Keenan and I've had
Mike Keenan on the show.
Yes.
What's Mike Keenan doing now? What's he doing? He's got to be completely out of hockey, right?
He coaches like junior hockey, stuff like that. Involved. But point being, I've covered this Ranger series as if I was on the band. I had interviews almost every week. And yes, if they won the cup, I'd be out there celebrating. But again, I can't do 4 hours a day on the Mets, Yankees, Rangers, and Knicks. Tell me they got to do an hour and give me 2 hours. And by the way, look, I will say this. Political radio and sports talk radio are very similar.
Very similar.
I love Trump.
Very similar. No question about it.
Trump. So I'm going to make every excuse, just like you are with your teams, right? I mean, now you're different because you're the ultimate pessimist. The Jets stink, the Mets stink. But most sports fans go out of their way to defend their teams. No, my team's great, especially down in Miami. Politics is the same thing. Just insert Trump for the Mets, insert Biden for the Yankees, insert Sanders for the Islanders. It's the same enthusiasm and the same, that's my team, that's my guy. They're very similar.
Even though I'm no Yankee fan, don't insult the Yankees by invoking Joe Biden. Let me put it this way. We wish Joe Biden was what the Yankees are, because we'd be in a lot better shape in this country if we were. I mean, we should only hope that. So don't as much as neither of us have any great love for the Yankees. Let's not insult the Yankees here. You know what I mean?
No, you're right. And look, even with the Yankees, I get Bucky Dent on the show here with Bernard. I'll get Roy White. I bring on the old guys. I don't care about the new guys.
Right.
Even the Tory teams. I get Tino Martinez once in a while. So I cover the Yankees too in the morning. And listen, they've been amazing. Judge 24 home runs.
It's unbelievable.
I mean, they're 40-16. They've got an 8.5 game
lead. 44-16. 44.
That's right, and they can pitch. So,
by the way, only the Mets and the Yankees have 40 wins right now in Major League Baseball. Those are the only two teams.
That's right. The Yankees are 44-16, and the Mets are 40-22. So no notes in front. By the way, I don't do a lot of baseball, not compared to you. Still know that off the top of my head. So I'm into it. The Yankees are just. I'm not a Yankee fan like you. I hate them, but I don't really. They're playing great baseball. 4 more home runs yesterday without Judge Stanton.
Yeah, Matt Carpenter hitting home runs, 7 RBIs from Matt Carpenter, bro. Come on, really?
And listen, Brian Cashman takes a lot of abuse, and deservedly so. But if you go back over the years and look at some of the acquisitions he's made to help the Yankees in the second half of the season, he's done more good than bad. Not all good, but more good than bad. And this Matt Carpenter pickup is a great pickup for the Yanks.
Yeah, no question about it. Talking to the great Sidney Arthur Rosenburg. Now, how's Bernie doing, bro? And first of all, how is it working with Bernie? Obviously, I know Bernie well from the days I was doing overnight, and I would lead into the Imus show and all of that, and always had a lot of fun with Bernie. How is it working with him now?
Every once in a while, Joe, he'll play that old phone call when he called in on you that night.
With the hockey, slapping the puck around. Right.
Yeah, he did it to both of us. He was Jerome in the Bronx for me and Antoine for you. But
Antoine.
Look,
right.
We got the perfect dynamic in that every day he's going to come armed with politics. So he'll have, for example, Joe, in the morning when I get in at 5 a.m., he'll have 30 cuts ready to be played by my producer, and they're all politics.
Right.
All politics.
Right.
Biden, AOC.
Right.
Eric Adams, Kathy Hochul.
Right.
Andrew, whatever it is. So, and I'm up on all that stuff too, obviously. In fact, I just took Andrew Giuliani out for dinner on Saturday night.
Yeah, didn't you tell me that you actually were with Andrew Giuliani watching the Ranger game Saturday night? Did you not tell me that? You said you went to dinner, but didn't you say you watched the Ranger game with him too?
I went to a legendary Italian restaurant in Brooklyn called Michael's Restaurant. The owner, Michael, is a friend of mine. And I said, Michael, it's me, my beautiful wife, Danielle, and Andrew Giuliani. Make sure we got the TV right by us. And the three of us sat there for a 3-hour dinner, had a great time, and watched the Ranger game together. Yes, him and his father, Rudy, are big Ranger fans. Rudy always brags to everybody. When I was the mayor, we won the Stanley Cup, and the Yankees won 4 World Series. But, so we did watch the game. So Bernie, I know he's going to do the political stuff. But for me, I do everything else. Pop culture, entertainment, lifestyle, sports. That's so when you blend it all together and put it in one big bowl of soup, it's a delicious bowl of chicken soup. So the dynamic works perfectly. He knows his role. I've got mine. I mean, it's really a 50-50 show, but for the most part, I'm kind of hosting really, and it's worked out great. Have you got, when you're doing the politics, have you been able to interview this would be something, let's say an AOC, or like you said, a Kathy Hochul or Andrew Cuomo. I mean, any of these kind of people, have you been able to interview? Listen, they won't come on our station. We've got to. Of course not. That's why I'm asking you. I mean, the closest thing I've got is actually one of the guys running against Kathy Hochul, Tom Swazi. He's a Democrat out of Long Island. He was on with me and Bernie a couple of weeks ago, and it became a huge story here in New York because he came on and he agreed with me and Bernie that Ron DeSantis' parental act down in Florida was a reasonable bill. And then 3 days later, after I guess receiving pressure from a donor or another Democrat, he went in the local papers and said, well, maybe what I said to Bernie and Sid was inartful, and he took it back. So I reamed I can't curse here, but I reamed them. Well, you could. You could curse all the hell you want, Sid. I mean, come on. Oh, okay. So I reamed him a new asshole, and I called him on his cell phone, and I said, hey, Tom, first of all, you come off like a liar, and second of all, you're never invited back on the Bernie and Sid show. So we've had those types of moments, but the big names in the Democrat Party, they would never come out with me and Bernie because, quite frankly, they're scared to death. Yeah, no, I believe me, I get that. I'd love to see you interview somebody like that, but they're never coming on with you. There's no question about it. When you and I were together, okay, was it the press conference with Isaiah Thomas when you had a couple pops? Was it you and I, doing some illegal substances in the bathroom? Do you remember that, bro? Well, I don't know where we were. We were at some freaking disco or some crap like that, and we were, right. This is the days you and I were together, and we were doing some things that, if we would have got caught doing, it wouldn't have looked too good. You know what I mean? Well, look, I don't mind saying it now. It doesn't matter. So go ahead. It doesn't matter. I mean, I go on the air all the time, and I say, look, I did a lot of cocaine with Bernard on a lot of different nights. I mean, I remember going to Bo Dito's Christmas party, and me, Bernard, and Michelle Salvatore going back to the Waldorf Astoria. We did lines for about 10 hours. Right. Night, that was the night Matt Deutsch jumped into the garbage bags. I think I was involved in this too. I mean, I think that's the night that you know what? Now that you mention that, I think that's the night that I actually got involved in a little bit of that too, and maybe did a little bit too much. And it was like the middle of December, and I was actually outside when it was 20 degrees out, basically sweating. Yep, that was you. And then, it got to the point. Right? It got to the point where I'd come to your front door and Terry would be scared to death. She's like, "Oh my God, Sid's here. It's going to be a long night." She knew, but there was a lot of, in our short stint together, you had the NHL funeral. Oh my God! Remember that? Yeah. And remember the fact that when we did that was when the NHL, shut down for an entire year, and but the only sports league that actually did shut down for an entire year. And remember there was like a major snowstorm that night after we did that. Do you remember that? And then driving, I think you actually drove me home because you were living in Teaneck back then, and I was living in Old Tappan. You actually drove me home to Old Tappan in this freaking snowstorm. You remember this, right? I do. I was actually in Tenafly, but yes, you were. Oh, Tenafly, right, Tenafly, not Teaneck. I mean, I go back to the Atlantic City trip, the boxing trip, Bon Jovi running into him with you and Terry. That was a great time. You talked. By the way, can I mention this? That's also when you asked me, we loaned you $100, and I finally got it back. I think it was like last week. One thing you learn, and I love you, Sid. I have nothing but love for you. One thing you don't do is loan Sid money because no. Well, no, now you can. No, now you can. You can do it now. Or you get it back now. Okay. No, You talked about the drunken press conference with Tim Thomas, but
Right,
for me,
right.
the greatest Joe Benigno, Sid Rosenburg moment ever was opening day. You and I are at Shea Stadium, and the Mets are playing, I think, Cincinnati.
Oh, my God. Oh, yes. Yeah, go ahead. Tell that whole story. That is a classic story.
It's a classic story. And you've got Musumeci. What was his name? Not Musumeci. What was his name? Chris, the great board op, the engineer, Chris.
Oh, you're talking about
Majakowski.
Chris Matchkowski, right? Yeah.
Right. So he's upset.
Musumeci, if I'm saying her name right, was actually worked for Imus. So
right.
That
right.
was
Chris
okay.
Right. So it's Majakowski is in the dugout of the Mets team and the opposing team, and he's going to get me interviews from the dugout before the game, because Joe and I, of course, are doing middays, which was great before the first pitch. So he says, listen, guys, I got Sandy Alomar. And Joe goes, fuck Sandy Alomar. His son sucks. He's ruining the whole fucking team. He's killing us. Roberto's killing us. Don't put fucking Sandy Alomar on the show. No.
No, I didn't say that. Hold on a minute. No, I didn't say that. What I said is I ripped Roberto Alomar.
That's what I said.
Right?
That's
and it's a good thing. And it's a good thing that I didn't say more than what I said. You know what I mean? I could have said a lot of worse things than I said.
So I did say his son is fucking killing us. He's
killing
us.
Right.
So what you didn't know, and I didn't know, was that Majakowski had already put the headset on Sandy Alomar, and he heard every word of it.
Yeah.
Now, being the good sport that he was, we come back from break, we bring him in. You're like, the great Sandy Alomar.
And we had no idea, and I had no, like you said, we had no idea that this guy heard the whole thing as I'm ripping his son, who, by the way, was one of the, let's be honest, I mean, he was an absolute disaster as a Met. You know what I mean?
No, listen, Sandy Alomar was cool. He goes, guys, I heard everything, but fine. He still did the interview.
He did do it. He did.
But you're right. Roberto was one of the greatest second basemen ever.
But not for the Mets.
That was a period of time with the Mets when it didn't matter who came, they sucked. Mo Vaughn, Jeremy Burnitz, Tom Glavine, who was okay at times, Roberto Alomar.
Don't forget Carlos Baerga. Come on, you can't forget him, Sid.
Yeah. So
by the way, while we're talking about former Cleveland Indians. Okay, we're saying that. How lame is the Guardians? How bad is that? That's pretty freaking bad.
It is lame. You know, one of the guys that is the reason why these things happen is one of my best friends, and he really is. When I say best friends, I mean
Who's that?
And that's Bill Sims. You know, Bill Sims was really, really upset and triggered by the Washington Redskins, now the Washington Commanders. He was triggered. Oh, really?
You're telling me that Phil Sims was that bothered by the Redskins name all those years?
Yeah.
Really?
He refused in games with Jim Nance and when he was in the studio to even refer to them by anything but Washington, even before they became the Commanders or the Washington football team. Wow. So my point being is that the Indians were never upset. The native Indian never got upset about the Indians or the Redskins. It was always some, rich white guy.
No, of course. The liberal elites. We know you thought, right? I mean, that's who we're talking about, of course.
Right. So in the end, they changed the name. It's ridiculous. The Indians have so great history in baseball, and even the name is stupid. Guardians. What the hell is that?
It's I guess because it's got the Ians, IANS at the end of it, similar to Indians. I guess. I mean, right? I mean, I guess that. Yeah. But I want to go. Let's go back though to the Cleveland thing. Carlos Baerga, we'll mix a little bit of this. Carlos Baerga, Roberto Alomar, and let's be honest, the Mets should have never given $340 million to Francisco Lindor. I mean, let's be honest. I mean, he is not a $300 million player by any stretch of the imagination.
I don't care. If Steve Cohen wants to pay luxury tax money, let him do it. I never understood the baseball fan arguing about the money thing. It doesn't matter. Now, if you have a cheap owner and he's going to spend $340 on Lindor and not sign anybody else, that's one thing. But Cohen doesn't seem to care. It's like the Yankees. So I don't care what they spend on the player. What I care about is the player. Does he perform? And whether Lindor got 340 or 140, he was a bust last year. Came on strong late in the season.
He's been better this year.
But I never get, Joe, I don't care about the money because if the owner has the money and he wants to spend it, as long as he spends in other places, and Steve Cohen does, whether the player is a bust or not, that's Steve Cohen's problem, not Joe Benigno's or Sid Rosenberg's.
Yeah, well, how much money you think? How much money you think Aaron Judge is going to wind up getting?
I think he's got to get at least $400 million. I mean, right now you got guys like Trout in the 300s and those guys.
Right.
I think Judge becomes the first $400 million ball player, and again, that's outrageous money. But A, the Yankees have it. B, yes, has it, and C, I think right now it's hard to argue he really is the best player in Major League Baseball.
Will the Yankees pay him before the year's over? Because I can't see how they're letting him get to free agency. I mean, I don't see how they do that.
They're going to have to do it. Again, they built up a tremendous lead, 8.5 on Toronto. He's got a Major League leading 24 home runs. They're going to have to do it. It happens right after the All-Star break. But to make this guy wait and possibly become a free agent, or even not get that far, to make him kind of twist in the wind, you can't do that to a guy that is clearly the face of the Yankees, clearly the face of baseball. I mean, I think you make Aaron Judge the face of baseball. I didn't like what he did with Josh Donaldson. I'd like to see Aaron Judge step up for his teammate and say, hey, he did nothing wrong. That's on Tim Anderson. The real guy that was the problem there was Tim Anderson comparing himself to Jackie Robinson. That was the issue, not Josh Donaldson. But in the end, he's the face of the Yankees. He's the face of baseball. He gets $400 million, my guess is, before the end of the year.
Yeah, I would think so. They can't possibly. I could see the Dodgers anteing up $500 million for him. I mean, right? I mean, that's the team. How much can I not stand? I hate the Dodgers, by the way. When that goes on, I can't stand the Dodgers. And you like them because you go out to LA all the time.
Hey, listen, they're an exciting baseball team, and what you saw last week with the Mets and Dodgers splitting that 4-game series. I can't. Any scenario, Joe, where that is not your NLCS preview, what you saw last weekend. So you get the West Coast versus the East Coast. You get the Dodgers who move from Brooklyn to Los Angeles. You got the two big payrolls, and the Dodgers are really good offensively, and the Mets can pitch. So I think it's going to be a tremendous NLCS. And don't forget, the Mets are still going to get back at some point to DeGrom and Scherzer. At that point, I think they become the better team. Right now, the Dodgers are the better team. You get DeGrom and Scherzer back, Mets will beat the Dodgers and go to the World Series.
Well, Scherzer will be back. I'm not so sure about DeGrom. I'm very down on him. So I don't, I try to. Scherzer will be back. Wake me up when DeGrom's back pitching.
You're right. And, you talk about Lindor's contract. I got news for you. When they signed DeGrom, he was in his 30s already. That was a terrible contract. But nobody cared because he was the best pitcher in baseball. We wanted him here. You remember when the Knicks gave Patrick Ewing all that money? You knew the last couple of years the miserable contract. We wanted to win now. So therefore, you can make the argument DeGrom's contract worse than Lindor's. We had to keep Jacob DeGrom here.
I would not. He's opted out of his contract before the year. I would not pay him big money again. Let him go. No. Go somewhere else. Right? Yeah. You agree with that?
Yes, 100%. He has not proven that he's healthy enough to demand any more contracts, any more big money. The Mets did him a favor. They paid him way too much. He should be loyal to the Mets, stick it out, and try to win some games. Pitch a little bit. Couldn't hurt you.
Yeah, it would be nice if he pitched. We're talking to the great Sydney Arthur Rosenburg, Joe Benigno, the Oda Payne podcast. Loved having Sid on here. Tremendous. All right. All those years you were down in Miami, you couldn't freaking wait to get back to New York. Are you happy about that now? I mean, we know what Florida is, and we know what New York is. Are you? So I understand New York is, the media center and all that garbage. But are you happy? I mean, do you like living in New York now? You moved out of Manhattan, which was a good move, right? You're living in what? In the island now? Are you on the island? Where are you now?
No, I'm in Queens. I'm in the Rockaways, and I live 2 blocks.
Rockaways, okay, that's close to the island now.
Yeah, I'm literally 2 blocks from the beach. It's gorgeous. I'm living in a beautiful community. And look, I could have stayed in Florida the rest of my life. I was doing very well down there, not personally, but professionally. I could have signed 1 million contracts, but I was bored, And look, if you're a sports fan, it's a terrible place.
Yeah, terrible. Yes, from that aspect, yes.
Terrible sports market in that. Look, when you move down to South Florida, you got Boston Red Sox fans, Chicago Bear fans, New York Met fans, Philadelphia Eagle fans. Yep. But there's no base for the home team. So you go to a Marlins game, it's all visiting fans. You go to a Dolphins game, it's all visiting fans. The only sport where they keep the home fans there is college football. Miami Hurricanes.
Yeah, right. Florida State. Yeah.
Right. And then the Heat, of course. Pat Riley's done an amazing job there. When I was there for 16 years, I was down there, believe it or not. 16. They're always great. They had Shaq and Wade. They had James Wade and Bosh. And now they're great again. So I was bored. And this is the only place to be in that industry. Look, if you like to play golf and you're okay just having a show on, that's the place. But you know me, like when the book is written, Joe, I want to be in the same chapter as Howard Stern, Don Imus, Mike Francesa. I don't want to be that guy that's just a midday guy making a couple of $100,000. I want to be great. And New York provides you the opportunity to be great. Miami doesn't. So again, you want to play golf and go to a nice restaurant, fantastic. But if you want to be a big star in this business, you cannot compare Miami to New York.
Does it? I understand what you're saying. Does it bother you though, considering your political philosophies, and now you're up here in the heart of the land of the liberals up here? Is that a little difficult for you or no?
No, of course. I mean, look, look, when I was there,
people come after you too, right? You've told me that people kind of go at when you were living in Manhattan specifically. People were giving you a hard time about what you were saying on the air, right?
They were giving me a hard time about what I was saying on the air. I never wore a mask. I never bought the whole COVID thing, not from day one.
Right.
But I'm still wearing masks right now. They're wearing 5 masks.
No, I understand. No, I get that. No, I see people wearing masks in their car by themselves, Sid. What is that all about?
I was that evil guy who likes Trump and works on WABC, doesn't wear a mask, that shit. And it's fine. Look, when I was in Florida, Ron DeSantis wasn't governor. It was a guy named Rick Scott.
Who's now senator down here.
Correct. So it wasn't nearly as emphasized. Ron DeSantis now has become the darling of the Republican Party.
No question.
A lot of people, especially now after these January 6th hearings, that want to see DeSantis run and beat Donald Trump because they think Trump has kind of hurt himself a little bit. It wasn't like that when I was down in Florida. But I live in an area right now here in Queens. Every house has an American flag. It is predominantly Republican, 90% Republican. It's all cops, firemen, first responders, the whole community. All cops, firemen, first responders. I found that one place in New York that is perfect for me. You're not going to find a liberal anywhere near my neighborhood. We don't want.
Okay.
It's all good for me. I'm happy I'm in the right place. But Manhattan, that was a nightmare.
Right. How about the way Manhattan is now? You like Eric Adams or not? I mean, I don't want to get too into the politics, but we are. Do you like Eric Adams? You think that he's got to be? No. Is he better in your mind than de Blasio was or not?
Look, who cares? I mean, de Blasio was the worst mayor ever. He has to be significantly
maybe Lori Lightfoot might be worse, but
that's fine. But he would have to be significantly better than Bill de Blasio to be a good mayor, and not. Look, Eric Adams and I became friendly when he was the Brooklyn Borough president. He was on with me and Bernie quite a bit. He would tell everybody my favorite show was Bernie and Sid. He started running for mayor. And I would hear him say one thing to appease the Democrats and the next day say something else to appease the Republicans. And I said, this guy stands for nothing. All he cares about is how fancy his suits are.
Let me ask you this. Will he get the crime situation straightened out in New York in your mind?
Not if he doesn't come back with stop and frisk and anti-crime units. And look, the fact is there was one guy who made it happen. I know Mike Bloomberg kind of lived off of him.
Bloomberg did a good job. He did.
But Bloomberg lived off of Rudy Giuliani. You have to follow what Rudy Giuliani did. So when Eric Adams ran for mayor, the first thing he said was, well, I don't like what Rudy Giuliani did. His tactics were racist. I want to go back to the David Dinkins days. Now, listen, I was there during David Dinkins. It was a disaster. You had Crown Heights. You had blacks and whites hated each other. Why would Eric Adams rather have a city under David Dinkins' rule than Rudy Giuliani? He said that 5 months ago. That's all you need to know. So he needs to get back to the ways that Rudy Giuliani ran this city to make it safe again. If he doesn't do that, it'll continue to get worse, and he'll go down as maybe a worse mayor than Bill de Blasio. Right now, statistically, he's a worse mayor than Bill de Blasio.
Wow, that's an interest. That's quite a statement you're making there, bro.
Joe, you can't argue the numbers. Crime in this city is worse now. I mean, the only thing he's done better, he's taken a couple thousand guns off the street. Shootings are down, but crime overall are big since de Blasio left, including murder, rape, and violent crime. So right now, Eric Adams is a dismal failure. Nice suits, but a dismal failure.
Yeah, nobody dresses better. The only guy I know that dressed better than Eric Adams is Isaiah. Isaiah when he was coaching the Knicks. Doesn't that? But I'm not in the I don't get into the NBA like I used to. Okay, part of it's because the Knicks are a disaster. The Knicks will never win. I mean, I have come to the conclusion that the Knicks will never, ever win again.
I disagree.
You think they will?
I think now.
Let me ask you, will we be alive when that happens?
Yeah, I think so. We talk about the Rangers and this great young nucleus which they've got. I'm sorry. You give me Quickly, you give me Toppin, and you give me R.J. Barrett. Those are 3 not good, really good young players. Now, the question is, can Jim Dolan convince veteran superstars to come to a place where the taxes are through the roof, if he can get one big-time player here, the Knicks can win.
Okay, well, this leads me to my next question, and I'm going to ask you, isn't it amazing that Jim Dolan owns both the Rangers and the Knicks? I mean, the Rangers are this well-run. They have been for a long time. I mean, no matter who was, whether it was Glenn Sather after a million years finally running it, Jeff Gorton and JD, now, of course, Chris Drury. The Rangers are run like a top organization, and the Knicks are run like shit. I mean, I mean, right? Is this crazy for me to say, Sid? I mean, come on.
But look, it's not because he hasn't tried. And I'm going to defend Jim Dolan to the day I die.
Dolan too? Are you and Dolan tight or what?
Well, I don't know Jim, but I know this. Anytime there's a big coach out there, Larry Brown,
right?
Jackson,
that worked well. Remember the whole thing with Larry Brown and what was her name? What was that? What? Rachel Nichols and the Larry Brown press. We forgot about that. How classic was that? When Rachel Nichols at the Larry Brown press conference. By the way, Larry Brown coached the Knicks for about 10 minutes. At the Larry Brown press conference, you and I there, and she ran from. I never saw anybody run away as fast as Rachel Nichols ran away from me and you at that press conference.
That is true. That is true. And Stephen A. Smith was egging her on, by the way. But the truth is, when we were there, we were excited they were hiring Larry Brown.
Yeah.
For many years, Knicks fans wanted Phil Jackson. So now it's easy to blame Jim Dolan when it went all bad. Right. When those guys are out there, he tries to get him. He tried to get LeBron. He tries. Look, he gives too much money.
Nobody wants to play here. See, these guys don't want to. These guys want to come here and torch the Knicks, okay? But they don't want to play here. And here's a big problem with the Knicks. And I don't know if you agree with this or not. Again, we're talking to the legendary Sidney Arthur Rosenburg. It's beyond legend. The Knicks are the most lucrative franchise in the NBA. Where is the incentive to be good when they sell out the Garden all the time? The celebrities are there. It doesn't matter. You understand, bro? Where is the incentive to win when they're making all this freaking money?
Jim Dolan doesn't need the Knicks to make money. Everybody's got a little bit of pride. Everybody. All right. He wants to win. The idea that he doesn't want to win and doesn't care, I find to be stupid. Again, he wouldn't hire Phil Jackson, pay him all that money. Larry Brown pay him all that money.
If Phil Jackson's not a GM, he's a coach. I mean, that was a disaster in itself.
The Heat made Pat Riley the GM. How's that gone?
But Pat Riley knows what that. Well, look.
No.
Don't get me started.
That's Monday morning quarterback.
Pat Riley leaving like he did is the Knicks have still not recovered from that.
I agree. All I'm saying is, look, Dolan has had a bad run with the Knicks. You can't defend his record, but I think he wants to win. He's always hired the biggest name out there. You know, even Thibodeau, that's a good hire. Okay,
no, Thibodeau's good. No, I like Thibodeau. They had a bad year, but Thibodeau's a good coach. You can't let Thibodeau go.
Now he's got three very good young players again, and Quickly, Toppin, and Barrett. Let's see if they can add some veteran talent. But it's really not Jim Dolan's fault. I mean, I don't know what the organization is like inside, all harassment issues, Stephon Marbury, all that nonsense, Isaiah Thomas. But who wants to come to New York and pay these types of taxes? And by the way, if you come to New York, you're not going to live in the city. You're going to live in New Jersey or Westchester. Who wants to sit in 2 hours traffic every day to get the fucking practice? I mean, I was in Miami. I was there for 11 years. Why do they love it there? No sales tax, none. No state tax. They all live down there in Coral Gables, right by the beach. They drove 10 minutes to American Airlines Arena.
That's where the U is. The U's in Coral Gables.
Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot that goes into the Knicks that goes above them. It's easy to blame Jim Dolan, but it's more than that. Trust me.
All right. Does it bother you? Because these things bother me about the NBA, and I'm not even talking about the China connection and all that. I'm not even. Does it bother you that they don't wear suits, the coaches, anymore? Because that makes me crazy with these
I remember
jumpsuits they wear.
I remember.
Am I wrong? I mean, doesn't this bother you? I mean, shouldn't you look like a goddamn NBA coach? Okay, not like you're coaching some rec league team. Am I missing something here, Sid?
The first time I fell in love with Bernie McGurk was on Imus in 2000, and he said, "Let me ask you a question." This was on the air. He said,
"By the way, I was still doing overnights then. I was still doing the overnights back in 2000."
Correct. He said, "When I watch the Mets, Bobby Valentine wears the uniform." He goes, "How come when I watch the Knicks, Jeff Van Gundy doesn't wear the uniform?"
Is that what he said? Come on.
But you're right. I can't stand the sweatsuits. Even Thibodeau. No, go back. wear a suit and tie. You're exactly right. Hey, by the way, you're doing overnights. Let me tell you something. For a lot of years, and he wouldn't admit this, Jody McDonald, I think, was angry with me because Mark Chernoff came to me and he said, I'm thinking about putting Joe Benigno on middays. What do you think? And I was like, sure. I love Joe. You and I were very friendly at that point already.
Right. We also had the same agent at that point. At that point, you had Lepselter as well at that point, right?
That is, well, yes. I went from Bobby Barrett to Mark Lepselter.
Right.
And what people don't realize is the first show I ever did on the Fan, besides Imus, the first talk show was filling in for you. Because when I got hired by the Fan, I went to Chernoff and I said, listen, NEW's paying me a couple of $100,000. Imus ain't going to cover it. He said, here's what I'll do for you, Sid. I make you a promise right now. In 3 months, nobody knows this yet, but in 3 months, George Steinbrenner is starting a brand new network. It's going to be called the Yes Network. And Susan Waldman is going to leave. And when she leaves, I'm going to put you on middays with Jody McDonald. So if you can stick around for 3 months and afford it, which I did. And then he came to me 2 years later and he said, I'm thinking about replacing Jody with Benigno. And I was on record saying, I love it. Not because I didn't love Jody. I love Jody. But me and Jody were kind of like a father-son relationship. It wasn't the same. You and I were renegades together.
Right.
So
kind of, yeah.
So I would love that. Do it. And I think Jody found out about that and was kind of angry for a couple of years. But at any rate, we got together in 2003 and it was a blast. And look, 20 years later, we're still talking.
Yeah, no, we really are. No doubt about it. The great Sidney Arthur Rosenburg. Does it bother you? I want to go back to the NBA for a minute because does it bother you that you can't like foul anybody anymore? Like, does it bother you that if you put your fingernail on a guy, you get suspended for 5 games, as opposed to the days when you can actually do a hard foul? And you know what I mean? I mean, does that bother you?
Of course. And what people forget is it wasn't just the big guys who fouled you back then. I'm sorry. You take that Detroit Piston backcourt with Thomas and Vinnie Johnson and Morris. Get out of here. Forget about Lane Beer and Rodman and Edwards.
Right.
Even the guards back
John Sally.
Right. You couldn't get a shot off back then without them beating the shit out of you. I would tell my son, I go, it was 86-84 at halftime of a Golden State Laker game. I said, Gabriel, that was the score at the end of the Knicks Piston games.
Of course.
Knicks Bulls games. Right. I mean, basketball was so hard to come by. Listen, I will never forget the Knicks playing the Bulls. And Scottie Pippen really wanted to cry and go home because Xavier McDaniel said to him on the court, I'm going to kick your fucking
Right.
That was X-Man. Forget
by
about
the way, that was another brutal. By the way, that was another brutal move by the Knicks, letting X-Man go after that 91-92 season. That was a big mistake doing that.
I agree. But to your point, yes, it was. They played hard. They played rugged. They fouled. They beat the shit out of each other. And really, that's why what it came down to was that's when we came to realize that even though he's one of the greatest Knicks of all time, and I'll always love him. That's when he came to realize that Patrick Ewing wasn't as great as we thought he was. Because going up against a physical center, he got beat every time. Olajuwon kicked his ass. Robinson kicked his ass. Duncan kicked his ass. Listen, if he could shoot and do a little jumper, fantastic. But the game, when it was a defensive battle, it was a better basketball game, and Ewing was exposed.
The only guy he really ever dominated was Alonzo Mourning. Alonzo Mourning, he would dominate. That was it. The only guy.
Yeah. That's true, and I was in Miami during those days, and it was Mourning and Hardaway against the Knicks, and Dan Marley, those guys. And
how much couldn't I stand that team? But anyway, yeah.
Allen Houston hit that big shot and all that, and
99.
Right. And I felt like Alonzo Mourning was okay with that because to this day, the guy he always looked up to was
Ewing at Georgetown.
Georgetown, right? Exactly.
Right. Crazy stuff, man. Oh my God, we could go on. Sid, you and I could go on and on and on. I'm going to ask you this, though, before I leave. All right?
Okay.
Talking to the great Sidney Arthur Rosenburg. Okay. Of the 4 teams I root for, okay? You know the teams I root for. The Knicks, the Rangers, the Mets, the Jets.
Of course.
Who is the next one of those to win a championship? Now, it looks like the Rangers or the Mets right now, but give me one of those.
Mets, because I think the Mets can win it this year. I mean, the Rangers, certainly next year. You got that real possibility. They can be that team. The Knicks are a couple of years off. The Jets are way off. The Mets, that team, again, if they get something out of the ground and Scherzer this year and they beat the Dodgers, and I had the same conversation with Francesa literally a week ago, last Tuesday, and I asked him the same question, sort of. I said, Mets and Yankees, who do you think is the more dangerous team? And he said, believe it or not, despite the fact the Yankees have more wins, he thinks the Mets are, and so do I. So in order, it goes Mets 1, Rangers 2, Knicks 3 because they've got those 3 young. I mean, look, I want to see this quarterback for the Jets, Wilson, in his second year, have a better year. They got to put more talent around these guys.
I don't love this coach. I don't like this coach, bro. I wanted him, but I don't like him.
You don't like him?
No, I don't. I hope I'm wrong. I want to be wrong, but I'm concerned.
I'm in the same boat. I got Brian Daboll in his first year. Daniel Jones.
Nobody knows what Daboll is.
Nobody knows, right? And the kid comes from Buffalo. He's a new GM. Daniel Jones is still the quarterback. Barkley still can't run the football. Galladay doesn't want to be here. So I don't know. It's depressing when you consider that football is like everybody's favorite sport. It's not mine, but it's everybody's favorite sport. And football season is already over in New York, and it's June.
Will the Jets ever win a Super Bowl while I'm on the earth? See, they won one. We know that, but not another one.
Listen, they were 1 game away 4 times, right?
Okay, great.
Richard Todd once, Testaverde once, and Sanchez twice.
Right.
My bet would be, how long do you live till? What age?
Well, me? I could be dead tomorrow. What do you mean? How long do I live to? What the hell do I know how long I'm going to live?
All right, let's say you live till 85, okay? Let's
85. Well, hold on. 85 is a big upset, bro. Let me tell you, Sid, with the way the country's going right now, I may not make 70. What do you?
Okay. Well, let's be optimistic because we all love. Let's go with 80. If you live till 80 years old,
okay.
The Jets,
let me just make a statement. It's only like 11 and a half years away, Sid. It's not that far. Really.
All right. Let's go back to 85. If you live to 85 years old, the bad news is the Jets will still not have won a Super Bowl.
Of course. I couldn't agree more. 100%, bro. It's painful, but it's true. All right. I'm going to finish up with a political. I want to hear what you say. Okay. You and I are clearly on the same page politically. There's no doubt about it. The next president of the United States is who?
I would have jumped to say Donald Trump, but I'm telling you that these January 6th hearings, even though they're a joke.
Oh, come on. Please.
Listen to me.
You know as well as I do, that was a setup, bro. They wanted that to happen. You know that.
Of course. And the only bad thing that happened that day was an innocent woman Ashley Babbitt murdered in cold blood, black cop.
Right.
So right now, if you ask me right now, the next president of the United States, I'm going to go with Donald Trump.
Okay. From your lips.
And by the way, I can't even tell you, and I do this for a living every day, who they're going to run against him. Pete Buttigieg can't beat him. Kamala Harris.
Oh, my God. Woo!
They have nobody.
Well, the one person, I'll tell you, I've talked about this with you. The one person I'd be concerned about is Michelle Obama.
Right, but she won't run.
She's running?
No, they got a great life.
They got to build another house somewhere, right? They got the one house in Martha's Vineyard. They got a house in Hawaii. They're doing that. It's really difficult for them. You know what I mean?
Correct. They've got a great life. She doesn't want to mess with that. Neither does Barack. Yes, she could beat Donald Trump. She could beat him.
Yes, I would agree with that.
The only question I have is, will Trump win the primary if he even runs? Because there's a lot of Republicans who are going to try to convince Donald Trump not to run and let Ron DeSantis kind of grab that.
Look, and I'm all for that. As you know, I'm all for DeSantis. But Don and Ron got to be on the same page together. They can't be going after each other. You know what I mean?
I agree.
They have to sit down and say, okay, it's either you or me, and go from there. Now, if Don wanted to have Ron as his vice president, that's fine too.
Agreed. And let me just say this on the way out before you let me go.
Please do.
I mean, I've worked with some of the all-time greats. I did a lot with Howard Stern.
Right. You're breaking up. Now I'm losing. Now we go. There you go. Okay, you're back. Go ahead. Continue on. You worked with Imus. You worked with Howard Stern. You worked with Craig Carton. You worked with Scott Kaplan. All these people. Go ahead.
Mike the Mad Dog. I mean, all these guys. And I have to say that, and I mean this sincerely. I'm not going to smoke a breast because this is your podcast. I've never met a more entertaining, enthusiastic. You're just great. I mean,
sick bastard. Would you go with sick bastard, Sid? Would you go with that?
Yeah, you're sick. You're a sick fuck, but that's right. That's probably why I love you. But I think you're great, man. And New York loves you. And you're always going to be that guy who won some crazy contest and ended up on WFAN. And even if you're Sid Rosenburg, and I worked at the station, even I, being on the air, couldn't wait to hear you on a Monday morning after a tough Jet loss on a Sunday. So on behalf of all of New Yorkers, even guys on the radio like me, I want to thank you for really being the most authentic and best real radio sports talk show host I've ever met.
Sid, I appreciate it, man. And who knows? Maybe I'll get to do a show with you somewhere down the road before I kick off at 85 years old. You know what I mean?
Love it.
I should only make it to freaking 85. That would be an upset if I make it to 85. I can tell you that.
You'll be there. You'll be there. You'll be 85 years old, and you'll still be ripping the Jets for another year. It'll be 70 years at that point.
Right. By the way, isn't it funny? And we'll close on this because I really appreciate you giving me the time. Isn't it funny? The Rangers from 1940 to 94 was 54 years, and everybody, oh my God, 54. The 1940 chants and all of that. Well, I just as a note goes here, it is now 54 years for the Jets, and nobody cares.
Yeah,
nobody cares, right?
You said that on my radio show last week. I didn't realize that. That was a great point. But don't forget, don't get upset. You have 3 hockey teams in New York, but the Islanders and Devils line up behind the Rangers. You have 2 football teams in New York, and the Jets still line up behind the Giants.
Oh, come on, they still play in their stadium. What a joke that is. Right. They still play in their freaking. You know that, Sid. That's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. It really is a disgrace. Sid, I love you. Best to Danielle. All right. Thank you for having me on the show when you do. I mean, all my best to Bernie. Tell him I love him. I hope he's doing well. And we'll talk to you again, bro. We'll talk soon.
I loved it. My best to Terry. She's a doll, a sweetheart. Love her. And I love you. You're the absolute best. Thank you for letting me do this. This was a lot of fun. Thank you so much.
Sid, all the love, bro. I'll talk to you soon. The great Sidney Arthur Rosenburg. All right. Again, I want to thank everybody for checking us out, for listening to us. I want to thank all my sponsors. I'll run them back again one more time for you. The Hackensack Brewing Company, KZ Sports Marketing, and Need a Discount Tire, the Blue Hill Golf Course in Pearl River, New York. And everybody, we'll talk on Friday.